This is 312, the HRP Podcast, and the question for this episode is, what does a text message conversation mean for you? I mean, how do you treat it? Is it like talking to someone in person, face to face? Or is it a correspondence, like a letter writing endeavor, which one takes the time to thoughtfully compose a reply to before acknowledging a response? Or do you have to drop everything and respond as soon as a text comes? Do you let conversations peter out, or do you have to have a sign-off, signaling the end of the exchange?
Nope, they can just end naturally.
I think it depends on the person. For some people, I know that it's an ongoing thing and I can respond as appropriate. Or for others, like my mom, it does require a goodbye, a hello, and a semi-immediate response. Yeah, I think it really depends on the person, though.
But if I'm in a meeting or busy talking to someone else, I won't respond to them until I actually read the message, and then I will respond to people.
I think texts are used to be convenient. I let it stand, and if they continue, I'll stop it. I'll say, okay, gotta go.
I don't think it's clear cut. I think or one size fits all. I guess it's not clear cut. I think it really depends on the person.
In a work setting, I feel like you should respond very quickly because you're at work, you're on work time, and everyone's trying to get tasks accomplished, so you don't want to hold up your coworkers. But in a personal setting, I think you have more leniency. You can respond at your convenience because those are your loved ones and they know that you're busy and you have a life.
I think most people our age, which is like 30s and younger, don't really need to have a formal goodbye or immediate response because they understand that you'll get to them. But the older generation, I feel like, does.
But of course, this is just personal text. At HRP, we always respond immediately when a client texts. Well, texting and how we understand it is at the forefront of this idea of responsiveness. At HRP, we think of responsiveness as a cornerstone of our identity as a company. So for the work hard section of the podcast, I decided to sit down with HRP's senior leadership to discuss what responsiveness means. So, Tad, you are the Chief Operating Officer and President of HRP Associates.
Yes.
So what does responsiveness mean for you?
Well, for me, it's really getting a positive response to someone in the quickest way possible to move the situation forward. It may not directly be the answer, but it's a push down the field towards a solution to the problem. That's what responsiveness is. I see our clients, they have a big variety, but for me, I view them as one. It is someone who has a need, has a problem where they need solutions. So they have kind of a pain point. That is someone who is looking for either risk management. I have a solution. It could be an instantaneous risk or problem or pain, or it could be something that is a long-standing issue. Historically or something in the future. So it's someone who's in need of help, assistance. We serve many kind of industries, manufacturing, light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, but also healthcare, higher education, also the legal field, the financial field too as well. So there's a broad range of spectrum from small to large, but everybody has a pain point.
Now, why does responsiveness matter so much for business like ours and for clients like ours?
Everything is fast these days. It always has been in our business. I would say it's very key because a lot of technology changes very fast. A lot of deals are done very fast. Even a lot of environmental controls and systems change very fast. So to push a system forward, to push a solution forward is very important. It could be on a new piece of equipment, a decision about production that's going to go with a new line or a new expansion of a plant, where people are constantly in planning meetings and they need to know some answers.
Now, as COO, how does responsiveness play a role in your job?
Well, our responsiveness, we do a series of work in progress meetings and operational meetings throughout the week, from a larger scale group at a 10,000 foot level, where we go office to office, but we also have work in progress meetings at the smaller level where it's a project team, a manager, and their support. And in those meetings, you're looking for due dates and delivery dates of materials. So it might be some internal due dates, quality control reviews, and getting the final product to a client in a time period for submission to a state, submission to a financial institution. Maybe there's a regulatory deadline. Maybe there's a legal deadline that has ramifications.
What advice would you give folks who are looking to be as responsive as possible?
The one thing I always try to do myself, and I really try to teach this to others, when you get a question or an inquisition, something out there, it's never about you. It's about the person that you're receiving the message through. Mm-hmm. It's like playing tennis. You want to knock it back over the net. Need to provide someone a course of action or direction in the most positive way. You may not have the answer right away, but if you respond and let them know you're either on it, moving towards a solution right away, it eases the tension and eases the pain. Has nothing to do with me. I want them to realize that there's a pathway forward. So taking it, that's my recommendation. Never think about yourself. Think about pushing that person forward, the person who asked that question.
When you're in a text message conversation with somebody, how do you think of those texts? Do you think of it like a one-on-one conversation face-to-face like we're having right now, or is it more like a correspondence where you kind of can take your time getting around to a response and it just kind of stops when the back and forth stops?
I view all text messages as direct conversation. It is someone has a need and they need a quick answer, a quick response that's not very verbose. Mm-hmm. That's usually how I deal with text messages. Otherwise, folks would call, folks would email.
Yeah.
I think a call it's probably a further issue that needs to be discussed. Mm-hmm. But a text message, often that I get, someone is live in a meeting, or they could be on a Teams call. They could be in a situation where they're in an airport, or they need a quick answer, a quick response of, am I on the right path? Can you help solve my pain? Mm-hmm. So it's not very conversational. It doesn't mean you won't have 2 or 3 texts back and forth, but they're short, they're quick, and they have a positive spin. You get right to the point.
Mm-hmm. And is that true both in your work experience and your personal life?
I would say for the most part, pretty much.
Okay.
I would say for the most part, pretty much. I guess with family, I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would say maybe not so much with friends or friends groups or college folks or your fantasy football team chat or things of this nature. But I would say a text message is one where someone is looking for an answer or response fairly quickly, not one that is sat on and thought about or not responded to for hours. They're usually looking for something within, I'll say, a half hour.
So, Tad, what is your preferred method of communication?
I would say in the business world, I would say number 1 would be a text message, and number 2 would be phone. Last would be email. Just directly, I would say with email, emails get lost. There's so many that happen throughout the day. But for me, a text message is very important. That's what I do. That's what I understand. That's what I react to the most, because I can provide short, succinct information to folks to keep them moving. But everybody's different. One of the things I think is very important when you go into a relationship, whether it's personal, business-wise, and when we're talking business, we could talk a client, we could talk a vendor, a supplier, subcontractor, things of that nature, is always ask that person, well, the question you asked me, what's your preferred method of communication? Because I feel that whatever they respond with, that's the one where when they need something, they are going to go to that avenue and they want the short, quick, direct response. I need this and I need this now. Some people like email. They might be behind a computer all day. They could be in training classes, things like that. Just had a client today that talked about just email. But some people are only available by text if you're on a shop floor or a plant floor, things like that. You can't hear, you can't see, and stop when you're around moving equipment. So for me, I'm just accustomed to text. where I can push people along in the different scenarios I'm in. That's my preferred method. But I think the lesson learned out there is always ask someone, hey, if I had to hit you back up, what's your preferred method? I said text first. Second is phone, because I think with a phone, you get rid of any of those confusions.
Yeah.
I can talk. I can say, expand on that. You can hear tone. You can hear angst in somebody's voice about, is this really important?
Yeah.
Where you can say, hey, let's meet in person because it sounds like you really need me for this type of situation. So that's why I always like to hear a voice. But in these days and times, I've come to realize that people don't have time or location of where they can talk. And text, if you do it properly, is an effective method.
Yeah, tone is so important because you'd have to have some serious skills as a writer to communicate that in a very short message. And then you have to have an audience who has the reading comprehension skills to really get that across. And that is going to be very dependent on the state of mind of the person receiving the message, which you may not have any inkling of, but that's all different when it's a voice-to-voice conversation.
Exactly. I mean, and you might be a good writer and pull it off, but one thing like tonal is a person talking slow or fast. Is it jumbled? Now, you won't see that in the text, but you can say, hey, this person has elevated their voice or they're delaying their response. There's a reason for that, and you do give off signs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So voice is always great to hear.
All right. Thank you very much, Dad.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
All right, Dan, you are the Chief Executive Officer of HRP Associates.
Oh, my goodness.
How do you define our business and the clients that we serve?
Okay, so we are an environmental services company. Environmental services covers a large space. So to be more specific, we're an environmental services company that's focused on the consulting end of environmental services, meaning to help people or entities resolve the environmental issues that they may be facing. And in terms of our client base, it's diverse and large. So we work for, in no particular order, state, federal, municipal entities. We work for nonprofits. We work for large industry. We work for commercial entities, and sometimes we even work for other services like lawyers. So it's a very broad and diverse space.
And so what does responsiveness mean for you?
Yeah, so I think the dictionary definition of responsiveness means to act quickly and positively. And in that context, I think that, with respect to HRP and the idea that we're highly responsive, I think we're literally talking about the textbook definition of responsiveness, or the Webster Dictionary definition of responsiveness. When people come to us from all of the client sectors that we're just talking about, typically the issues that they're facing are not things that they would choose to face, in their daily lives. It's kind of like going to the doctor's office and finding out that you've got an issue that needs to be dealt with. And so sort of from a storytelling perspective in that context, when you go to the doctor's office and they send you out for more tests, you want the results of those tests back quickly because, you're kind of concerned about it. I think environmental issues for most entities that face them are very similar. So we need to be responsive and positive to the problem and try to get people to some level of comfort, which means either in process or to conclusion quickly.
And so we talked about it a little bit, but why does responsiveness matter so much for our business and our clients?
Yeah, I mean, we are a service provider, and there's 1,000 memes and jokes out there about the cable guy and how, when you call for service from the cable company, you might get a date and a time and they may or may not show up. And that's very frustrating to people. And that's just something simple, relatively simple, like being able to consume digital media or TV, even something as basic as that. So, I think that it's incredibly important to our space, to our industry, because people fall into these traps in a service profile where they're more concerned about potentially their own internal struggles around some technical aspect of whatever it is that we're doing, as opposed to paying attention to what it really is that our clients are looking for. And I think that prioritizing the idea of a responsive service and doubling down on that increases the perception of the quality of the service that we provide to people, and increases their feelings of confidence in the answers that we're giving them or the solutions that we're helping them to find, if we're being proactive and responsive and acting quickly.
What advice would you give people about being responsive, about making that a part of how they operate, and tips on how they can do it?
That's a great question, because being highly responsive, it's almost like a personal calling at some level. So, a lot of people who try to take that seriously end up in these sort of situations as you progress in a career where, your phone never stops ringing at night, over the weekend, so on and so forth, because you build sort of a professional profile based in responsiveness, where I think people learn that they can rely on you. And so they do. And that's a good thing from, a business perspective, but it can be exhausting personally, because, it kind of never ends. You can't turn it off. So I think the advice that I would give somebody that's leaning into this is to recognize that the arc of responsiveness doesn't necessarily mean being personally responsive, right? Being responsive sometimes can simply mean passing something along to the right person. You get a phone call, take a message, and somebody's asking for something, just passing it to a colleague or to the right person and saying, hey, can you follow up with this, is being responsive. So I think, that's sort of a simple narrative, but I think in that way, if you sort of step back and you think about like what the whole space of responsiveness actually looks like, you can find areas to sort of reduce your personal exposure to being highly responsive, if you will, but also still maintain responsiveness.
And what would you say is your preferred communication style? As in, what medium of communication do you most enjoy or prefer to talk to someone with? Be that like text, email, phone call, kind of thing.
So everybody around this organization knows that I'm a text guy. I think that's more just an old school thing. I got to a point in my career where email was just, polluted with all sorts of solicitations and, other meaningless communications. Email basically became snail mail for me.
Yeah.
You just get a lot of garbage in your inbox. And, you get so much stuff that it was impossible almost on a daily basis to get through all of it in a meaningful way. So I got to the point where I would say to people like, listen, if you really need me, just text me, because it's sort of like a direct line of communication that's quick and efficient. And so that's kind of how I evolved personally. But even now, things are moving again. And around the office, we use the Teams platform a lot. And a lot of my younger colleagues are communicating more on Teams, even using it as sort of a much more expansive text platform, because, you can include documents and share, more detailed communications quickly. I'm struggling with that a little bit because I'm still sort of tied into the old school sort of text style. But it is fascinating to watch how the efficiency of communication evolves over time. And I think, more senior professionals like myself need to work harder at trying to stay current. So that's on my to-do list.
As CEO of the company, you're constantly in contact with people. People are always trying to, talk to you about something or other, whether that's something that really needs your attention or not. How do you handle not getting burnt out from that? How do you find time to unplug from that? Or is that something that is even possible for you? Just a role demand that you are always, available?
Well, I'd be lying if I said that was easy. It's not. I view all executive roles as a role of service. It's an old saying that I love: leadership is not something you have, it's something that you do. And I think really captured in that idea is that, leadership is about service. So I really do see my role as serving everybody else in the company. Sometimes that's difficult because you have to make decisions between competing agendas where, two people want a different outcome and, you get in the middle of trying to resolve that or make a decision and, one party is ultimately not happy with the decision that you made. That's sort of off in the weeds, I guess. But you just kind of have to try to figure out a way to sort of click out of it. And what I find is, hobbies outside of work, things that I like to do personally, especially with friends and in particular friends that are, no offense to all the great people of HRP, but people who are not from HRP, provides me a platform to sort of disconnect. I can go to a barbecue at a friend's house on a weekend and I can turn the ringer off on my phone, including the vibration feature, and stick the phone in my back pocket. And I know where my wife is, I know where my kid is, and I know where my friends are. And that's probably enough in that moment, and just sort of step away. I think you just have to be very deliberately conscious about hitting the off button and not allowing yourself to bleed back into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, great. Dan, thanks so much for talking with us.
Yes, sir.
So, Joe, you are the Chief Financial Officer of HRP.
Hello.
That's how you're going to respond to that?
Hi.
Joe, how do you define our business and the clients we serve, or I guess more appropriately, the clients you serve?
So for us, the clients and who we support are internal. We deal mostly with other business units like our practices, our regional office managers, and project managers. So those are our clients, and our job is to support them.
So what does responsiveness mean for you in that role?
It is to be as flexible as possible and to be able to respond to needs that our project managers, regional office managers, practice leaders all have, to be able to be responsive to their clients. So if we're slow on our end, it's going to make them slow on their end.
Is that why you would say that responsiveness matters so much for
Absolutely.
business and clients?
Absolutely. It matters for us to support our team that would be able to support our clients.
What advice would you give people, I guess both externally and within the company, about responsiveness?
And the best advice is just to be as flexible as you can possibly be. I mean, again, as a business, our main business is selling hours, and being responsive to our clients is one of the ways you do that. And internally with being a support staff, it's very important to be as responsive as you can to our team so they can in turn be as responsive to their clients.
And what would you say is your preferred communication style?
Mine personally is email, and I would think that would be the best and easiest way for our staff to be able to handle the requests. We do get a fair amount of requests in each section of the accounting department: Amy, Nicole, Pam, and Lisa. So to have that email to be able to follow up, to have it properly communicated is probably the best way. Sometimes with text, there's an urgency that might not be there. With verbal, there could be some miscommunications. I feel like email is probably the best way to be able to get what you need as quickly as possible.
Okay. And can you just take us through really quickly the way that the accounting department here is structured and who each of those folks are and what they do?
Sure. I am the CFO, so I am basically in charge of the department. We have Lisa Crower, who is the accounting supervisor, who supervises the rest of the staff and also is in charge of doing most of the billing. She does the billing for the major contracts that we have, like the DEC and DOT. And then we have Pam, who is also a billing specialist, who does the rest of the billing for the rest of the office. We have Nicole, who is in charge of accounts receivable, which is when money comes in to apply it properly. And then lastly, we have Amy Caligari, who is in charge of sending money out to our subcontractors and vendors.
Now, do you think a division of labor like that makes communication and responsiveness easier, or does it prevent some challenges having it that's structured that way?
That is a great question. The answer is yes and no. We separated it out the way it is to make it a little more focused. So someone who needs, if you define it, if you bring it down to the basics, Pam and Lisa are sending invoices out, Nicole's collecting money, and Amy's paying money.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, that's the way we kind of structure it. That's the way most companies structure it. Some smaller ones might have one person who does all of it. So, but it could cause confusions with some, helping out project managers who don't know the ins and outs, and then have their favorite and just ask their favorite every time, every question possible. Usually poor Lisa.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to clip out these instances of you saying great question and just play that on my phone anytime I come into your office with a dumb question.
that's awesome. Do that. Can you do it so you can get that button like I have on my desk? You just push it.
You just need to have the
Great
pre-recorded answer too.
Yeah.
We're all set.
I do. I have my note.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Last thing, how do you think about text message conversations? Do you think of it as like a one-on-one like we're having right now where, it's back and forth response in real time? Or do you think of it more as like, I'll respond to this message when I get it, or when the conversation's over, or I just stop responding? Or do you need to have like a good talking to you, let's talk again soon at the end of it to like signal that it's done? Like, and how does it change between personal and work life?
So for me personally, text messages is conversational.
Yeah.
In the professional work world, I don't find it conversational. I find it to be the communication you would need if it's an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So that's again why I prefer email over text messages, because text is, if you're going to as far as to text someone, you need an answer immediately. And I feel it can be misconstrued as an emergency where it isn't. So professionally, I don't like text messages, but personally, I do.
Yeah, we're in a group chat with a former coworker who will send us TikToks pretty regularly, and if we do not respond within maybe 2 to 3 minutes telling him how funny it is, we'll immediately get a hello.
Yeah. Are you there?
Are you there? Anybody?
Is this not funny? And then he says, I'm done with you guys.
Yeah, he's done.
Yeah.
Till he sends the next one
And then
in an hour.
10 minutes later, he's got another TikTok. And that's the funny thing is I have not looked at any one of the last 4 or 5.
Yeah, you're like 4 weeks
He
out.
thinks
It's your
I'm
big Italy
He might
vacation.
think I'm dead.
I know. We keep asking if you're back from Meatball
Gooball
Mania.
Land.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
Thank you, Tom.
Everybody, welcome to the Play Hard section of the podcast. It is the Responsiveness podcast. So we are recording from the Gulch so that folks here, if they need to be responsive, can hop on their computers and return some emails or calls. Got a few different camera angles here, but in addition to myself, we have Joy Waters, Ambrielle Johnson,
Hello, everyone.
and everybody's favorite, Carly signed in.
Hello.
Okay. So, folks, what is a text message conversation like for each of you? Folks, we're going to jump into the text etiquette portion for Play Hard because we think it ties in pretty well to the responsiveness thing. So I want to hear from each of you how you view that. Is it like a one-to-one conversation like you're in person, or is it more kind of just play it as they come in?
I feel like I'm pretty casual with my texting, and I try to be responsive, but I'm also one of those people that feels like I don't need to be available to you 24/7. So if you text me and I'm like, because I treat it the same way I treat an email. Like, I try to respond to my emails as soon as possible, but like, I feel like if I responded to every single email and every single text the minute that they came in, I would never get anything done.
No.
You know? So it's kind of like you have to prioritize. It's definitely on a prioritization basis. Like, if it's something immediate, if like Walt texts me and is like, hey, can you cover a spill response right now? I'll be like, hey, yeah. But like, if someone's like, I don't know.
If I emailed you, texted you.
But if anytime Tom texts me,
forget it.
I'm like, oh, this isn't important.
I'm also bad with, I text you back like a day later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a very bad texter.
I think this sounds terrible, but I think it depends on how much I like you.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's times when I'm like really, really responsive and it can be like a back-to-back conversation through text. But I also feel like there's times where I will ignore a text for a few days until I get back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely happens for sure. I try not to, but I don't know.
If I'm
Sometimes
overwhelmed
I need
with other stuff,
yeah, or I
then
need to
text
think
kind of go
about
on
it.
the back burner.
Or especially this goes a little bit more away from work, but if someone's texting me to like make plans, if it's like a social thing, sometimes like I'm not sure, like I need to ponder it for a minute. Like, do I want to go to that thing? Do I have time this weekend for that? Do I want to just stay home? Like, what am I feeling this week? Like, how much energy do I have to give to this? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like sometimes I just need time to like think about it before I respond.
So let's talk about some etiquette stuff, because I feel like this is kind of a real grab bag for people. You never really know what you're going to type that's going to set somebody off. One of the things for me is that if I, in a single sentence text, put any kind of punctuation at the end of it, I have a friend who will flip out on me and think that I'm being condescending and sarcastic.
If it's a question mark or an exclamation point, it's fine. If it's a period, we're going to have some issues.
Yeah, you're in that boat too.
But it also depends on the content.
Mm-hmm.
But we talked about this before where, like, the format of texting is already informal enough that punctuation is not always necessary.
Yeah.
Because, like, the message can be contained.
It's implied.
It's implied.
The period's
that, like,
implied.
Yes.
The sentence is ending.
Yeah.
The bubble of the text message has a enclosing function that a period would serve as well.
I'm all for using exclamation points, though.
Yeah.
So
I
many.
use many exclamation points.
So many.
How will people know that I'm fun and carefree and this isn't, a big deal if I don't
Right.
put
But that
multiple
period
ones at the end
feels
of it.
less than fun and carefree. It feels almost negative to put that there. So I kind of understand why your friend gets upset.
Mm-hmm.
Feels very serious.
It's very
In
serious.
a professional context, like I wouldn't feel any type of way if someone put a period on a text. But if it
That's
was from a
true.
friend, then I'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
something serious is going on.
Kind of like what Carly said with the text being like an email in that situation. So like when it's a professional text, it's essentially an email and the punctuation just feels more
Correct.
formal.
I
I
like doing
agree.
a little ...
Ellipses.
Yeah.
The boomer ellipses. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else out there in the audience has heard of this, but I think it's characteristic of people of an older generation. I won't limit it to just boomers, but they'll use ellipses very often, sometimes like in place of punctuation. But it can sound very ominous, especially if you use a
Yes.
lot of them. Like it could be like, "Hey Tom, ... Just wondering if you had any availability this week, ... I'm working on something." It's just like if it just keeps going, like, yeah, it can feel a little off-putting.
Yeah, like there's this hidden meaning implied here that it's kind of understated.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like, what are you getting at?
Yeah.
Is there something
Read between the ...
Yeah, is there something else going on that I'm not quite picking up?
Mhm.
But I will say I use them on occasion now, not like multiple in a row.
Really?
Yeah.
I never have.
But I will use it like usually to mean some sort of suspense. Like sample results came in, ... Like check it out.
Sometimes I use it as like a trailing off because like sometimes I will type the way I'm thinking, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'll put like a ... to kind of not know how to end something.
I do
and
that
somebody
too.
else can pick it up.
It's a fade out.
Yeah.
I don't love that. I kind of wish Apple never invented the reactions
Oh.
to text messages.
Yeah, you think so? That's so useful for me.
I'd rather
like
just
them.
have a reply like, okay.
I like to thumbs up. I like to love a message. I like to emphasize a message, like yes.
In group chats, yes.
What does emphasize mean for you?
Like it's the 2 exclamation points, and
Yeah.
it's like if someone sends something that you think is like important,
Mm-hmm.
you're like yes that.
Okay.
I second. It was like second. I second that.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Interesting. Okay. I'm always
does it-
confused by it.
What does it mean for you?
It doesn't mean anything for me, but I
Oh.
but I feel like people use it as if it were thumbs up.
Yeah.
which is like just an acknowledgement of a thing.
Right. I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if like I agree with someone. If
Yeah.
someone says something like fire in the group chat, I'm
Mhm.
like, absolutely.
Emphasize.
Yeah.
Maybe it says more about me that I just don't have a reaction when people agree with me. To me, it's just like, yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. Why would I need to say anything about that?
If you agree, it's like no response.
Mhm.
You only have to say something if you're like, no,
Yeah.
I disagree with that.
Which I usually do. What's the correct version of okay for text?
That entirely depends on the context,
Yeah.
I think. I don't know if this is old school of me or not, but like I will spell out okay, like O-K-A-Y. Like I don't do just O and K. I don't know why. I prefer it. But like okay, period is something entirely different than like okay, thumbs up.
Right.
So like
okay, exclamation point.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, exactly.
period.
So yeah, it can have a lot of meanings depending on how you use it, I guess. And then there's, the classic K.
K.
That's never
Nobody
good.
can tell me that just K, especially with a period, like isn't meant to be sassy. Who?
What if you do K exclamation point though?
That's even more sassy.
I've never seen
Really?
that. The period's very
I'm gonna
sassy. I
start
don't think I've
doing
ever
that.
seen
Have you
that
guys
either.
seen? I say KK sometimes as a fun little
Okay.
instead
Yes.
of K.
I've definitely I've
KK.
seen that. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's like
Very
lighthearted.
informal.
Yeah.
So 2 Ks, lighthearted, 1 K, mean.
Serious.
Serious.
Passive aggressive.
I learned how to text, which is a weird thing to say, from somebody who used K just as their standard okay, with no other meaning behind it. And then I started dropping that with a younger friend a few years ago, and they were not having it because they thought it was extremely sassy.
Yeah. No, I see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for younger generations, texting just becoming more and more informal.
Yeah.
We're getting less and less letters, more abbreviations.
Yeah.
Just emojis for words.
I love emojis. Use them all the time.
There's so many.
I feel like, and I love when the new iOS update comes out and there's new ones. And
Yeah.
there's a new color heart to use.
I like when they had
That's
new
one of my
food.
favorite things.
New food emojis.
New food.
Yeah.
And like new faces too. Like some of the best ones, like there's an upside down smiley face. That one's great for when you're just feeling a little like, whoa.
I like the one
Knocked
that's
off.
dizzy.
Yeah,
has
the
like a
dizzy
little-
one too. Yes.
Yeah.
There's one that has a cowboy hat for when you're feeling a little extra yeehaw.
Mm-hmm.
So many good ones.
I would assume an upside down smiley face means I don't mean what I'm saying right now.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I kind of interpreted that one as sarcastic.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like you're like, oh, stuck in traffic, upside down smiley
Yes.
face. Don't
Having
text
such a
while
good
driving,
time stuck in
actually.
traffic. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't do
Disclaimer.
it. We don't do that, actually. That was just an example of something that we don't do.
If you're in the passenger seat,
Yeah.
and you're
Yes.
in traffic.
Mhm. The other thing that I think we wanted to mention was that I thought was really important to mention was mental health when it comes to texting and responsiveness, because you really do, I think, when you're not working, have to unplug and go offline. Especially like the more you're into this, the more people are going to reach out to you. And do you feel the same, Carly? Who I'm
I-
now throwing it to.
I do, yeah. And this is different from texting, but recently I turned off my Outlook notifications on the weekends.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll check it, like in the
Good for
in the
you.
morning. I'll
Mhm.
go through, but like notoriously, Matt Wojcik loves to send an email on a Saturday morning, a Sunday morning even. And so then it's like the first thing I see on my day off is like emails coming in, and like happy for him that he can be productive on the weekend. Like great, but sometimes I don't want to see it.
6 a.m.
So that's
Sunday
like
morning.
so I feel like that's kind of getting into the same thing of like responding, like responsiveness over the weekend.
Yeah.
Again, if it's urgent, if it's like pertaining to field work that's happening on Monday, like of course you got to like sort that stuff out.
Yeah.
Um
But I think if it's urgent, that's when it goes from email to text.
yes, because then
Yeah.
you'll see it. Right, exactly. And I
Mhm.
think that's appropriate because
Yes.
like me, I have my notifications off on the weekend. So yeah, text me and then I'll see it, you know? So yeah. But if it's not urgent, then like yeah, I'm not responding.
I think that's why it's so important for managers to like really respect that text message boundary for it to be something that like it has to be a very urgent, time-sensitive emergency to text.
Yeah.
Like, and it in the time frame where it's like it's no longer work hours.
Yeah.
Because you abuse that, then you're not going to get the responsiveness that you need.
It's true.
Mhm.
Yeah. What are
I forgot what the question was.
mental health?
I find that texting stresses me out
Yeah.
when I get busy, when I have other stuff going on in my life. Like if I have multiple texts from multiple people, I can't respond. It feels too overwhelming. And then
Yeah.
I'll respond like 2-3 days later.
Yes, and it's always like, oh my God, sorry I took so long to respond. That's how my texts
Yeah.
always start.
And then it kind of defeats the purpose
Sorry
of texting.
for the late response.
Because that's the whole point, is to get a quick, accurate response.
Yeah.
See, I don't think I agree with that. Like, I don't think texting is for a quick, accurate response, because it is very much like an email. It's a message to be found when you can get to it. I think a quick, accurate response is a call.
That's true.
True.
I think so too.
That's a great way to put it, Joy, because I've always thought it the same way. That it's like it's somehow both at the same time, but I feel like I default to what you just described. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I will send a text sometimes in hopes that, like, I get a quick response, but if I'm not getting it quick enough, I'll just call.
Exactly. I think so too.
I hope this text finds you well.
But it is interesting how like our communication forms have evolved. Like I think our parents and grandparents, if they to keep in touch with friends that weren't close by, they would call them. Like they were just picking up the phone all the time and cold calling their buddies. And now
Cold calling.
Yeah. And like we don't really do that anymore. And so I think texts have like kind of swooped in to serve that purpose, like to keep in touch with people, but it is more informal, and it's kind of nice that way, that like you can reach out to someone and then like they could respond, you'll probably hear back, but it doesn't have to be right away. And then like it kind of does I like the thought of like taking the immediacy out of it, because then I think it removes the stress, like you're saying. Like
Maybe I'm just thinking of texting the wrong way.
Maybe if you remove
I gotta do it on my schedule.
Yeah.
My time.
Like if you take out the stress of like I need to respond to them right away, like they're reaching out to me because they want to hear from me right away, and if you just like allow yourself to think I'll respond to it when I can.
It's not even like work things too. It's just like texts from my friends.
No, yeah. Someone texted me, "How was your trip?" And like that's such a nice.
That's going to require a whole like paragraph.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It's good.
And I want to,
Gotta have some time, draft
it. Took
it.
me 3 days to respond to that. How was your trip text?
Yeah.
That's just
Exactly.
What happens.
Yeah.
It's really got to, I think, depend on the person you're talking to. Like, you got to know what they expect, which is really true of like all communication. You have to like tailor your response to your audience. So not just what you write, the content, but also the responsiveness of it needs to follow that as well. Have any of you ever waited so long that you felt you could no longer respond to the person?
Yes.
I had a friendship, and because the person waited so long to respond to me that they just assumed I was mad and they got scared and wouldn't talk to me anymore.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Did the friendship end?
It wasn't a close friendship, as you can tell. It was a respectful acquaintance.
Right.
But they waited so long to respond to me that they just assumed I didn't like them anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
2 days. After 2 days, I'm like, okay.
Really?
2-3 days.
Okay.
But I don't think I've ever not
I would say
responded.
after a week, I would be like, oh, this person is not getting back to me. A week. I would give it a week. Because I give myself a week. Like, if I go longer than a week, or if it's approaching a week, I'm like, okay, I really need to, like, get my shit together. Get my stuff together.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, it depends. Because I have one friend who I know takes forever. She will take 2 weeks to respond to a text.
Yeah.
So I just prepare myself.
You got to reach out early.
Yeah.
What's your schedule next month? I'd love to see you.
I think that's, again, like, it depends on the person, because, like, your acquaintance, it just seemed kind of too strange to respond after not responding for so long.
Yeah.
But if it's, like, somebody that, like, is still a friend either way, I will just change the subject. Like, I'll see that I didn't respond for 2 weeks, but that's not why I opened this message. I'm here to start something else. So I'm just going to start something else.
Right. So you don't feel any obligation at that point to like respond to that.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah. Because I feel like, one, if it was important, they would have followed up.
Mm-hmm.
2, if it's still important, they'll mention it now that I'm like
Mhm.
reaching out to them. 3, they probably forgot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
I like that perspective and like just giving grace to the people that you're communicating with, especially if they're your friends. Just like, yeah, I might have forgotten about your text and you might have forgotten about mine. Like, whatever, let's just move on.
Yeah.
Mm.
And not holding a grudge, like, I don't know, like some people might, like your
Some people.
friend,
Yeah.
your former friend.
How do we feel about group chats? Yeah.
I hate group chats. I mute all of them. And I can't even say that I catch up. Like, I might try to catch up, but it's too much. Like, I find group chats overwhelming, just entirely overwhelming. If it's beyond, I want to say 4 people, it's too much. I can kind of handle 4 people.
Yep.
But even that can be overwhelming if everybody's just like response, and I'm sitting at my desk like, don't you people have jobs? So, but
I agree with that.
They're very overwhelming.
Depends on the number of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like my family group chat's 6 people. That's a good sweet spot. Yeah.
I feel like I don't have as many group chats anymore where I'm being like spammed. I used to have that a lot, like in, I don't know, in college and high school. Nobody's spamming me with texts anymore. So I guess, I don't know, my group chats don't stress me out, but I think it's also the size. Maybe that's what it is. Like, I used to be in these larger groups, general groups, like in marching band, we would have a group chat for like the entire mellophone section, which is like
How many mellophones are there?
almost 30 people. So it's like
In the
30 people in a group chat is like, yeah, it could be crazy.
Are you saying there's 30 people that played mellophone?
Yes.
How is that possible?
Have you ever seen the Yukon Marching Band?
I haven't even met 30 people that know their mellophone
I didn't think
is.
there were. I thought there were
I would
probably
say it would
at
vary
most 30
from
people in
like
the whole band.
25 to 30 on any given year.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's pretty significant.
That's
So like that
shocking.
was a, but I'm not part of like big groups like that anymore.
Yeah.
So my group chats are like, yeah, maybe 5 people.
And then it's always like the same people who talk in the group
most.
chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. I have several that they're all kind of fine for group chats, but there's one that's just it's 4 people, including me. And at any given time, 2 of the people in the group chat will be having a really heated argument about nothing that goes on forever, that you just have to mute the conversation. Then you'll come back to it like 3 hours later and there's 200 text messages of people.
That's
So I'm
stressful.
just going back and forth.
Like,
about
why don't they
nothing.
just text each other?
That's why, yeah.
Why do you need to be observing this?
Mm-hmm. Or there'll always be a conversation about a topic that 3 of the 4 people are interested in and the other one just could not care less about. And
Yeah.
it's very vocally like, just stop talking about this.
Take me out.
Yeah. They need to have a purpose.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you go off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we are pretty much ready to wrap it up here, but I do want to address some of the things that the viewers of the video portion of this podcast, so we've been doing video this whole time for those still listening, might be a little confused about. First, I want to address, I'm sitting on a exercise ball, which is why I might appear to be lower than everyone else in the shot.
Tom's just tiny.
Mm-hmm. We're also 3 of us wearing HRP PFAS shirts.
Because we love PFAS.
We actually don't love PFAS. PFAS is horrible. It's a very bad thing. We're working diligently to help people who are dealing with issues of PFAS. I don't think anyone out there would really think that we actually love PFAS, but I do want to clear up.
We
the
could say
sentiment
as
here.
environmental professionals. First of all, it's funny. Second of all,
Yeah.
as environmental professionals, we are very interested in understanding PFAS and the way that they enter and move through our environments. And so in that way,
Yeah.
we love PFAS.
Exactly. Yes.
There you go.
All right. Well said. And to wrap up on a responsiveness note, Imbrielle recently received a call. Before we started, got a call that she needs to go and pick up a piece of equipment from U.S. Environmental Rental.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll wrap it up there.
She's going to be responsive to that call.
Absolutely.
And
After
head
hours, no
out.
less.
On a Friday.
On a
Yeah.
Friday. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. If you are listening, rate us 5 stars, please, on Apple. And if you are watching, you can subscribe hit the like button, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everybody. Everyone wave to that camera.
Thanks for watching /
Thank
listening.
you.
Bye.
Bye.